when you talk about money, like you said before, the passive income or the reoccurring income or the side hustles and having other streams of income and things like that. I mean, this has to be taught at some point in time. People got to realize that just because you have a job that you're working 9 to 5 doesn't mean you can't work, after 5 o'clock. Doesn't mean that okay, 5 o'clock, I'm dead. I got to go home and I got to watch Netflix all night long. I mean, you don't have to do that. You literally could at 5 o'clock when you get out of your job, you could start a side hustle. You could do something different, part-time, whatever it is, and try to grow something, try to build something that ultimately could run without you. The challenge I see is when you look at education today, and I think education is extremely flawed. So you have these teachers that know nothing about money. They know nothing about, the economy. They know nothing about building wealth, and they're actually in charge of our children for 8 hours a day for, what is that, 10, 12 years or something like that. And so that's scary to me. And then we hand over our adult kids to another set of teachers, which now they're called professors. And now we give them over to the professors, which again, if most professors are broke, most professors know nothing about wealth. They've never created anything or built anything. I'm saying most.
Yeah, I agree with you.
And I think this is a huge challenge, because what they're saying, because usually it's a mirror, right? They're using their own situation and they're saying, well, I'm broke. I have no money. I don't know what I'm doing financially. I have no financial education. So therefore they tell the kids, they're like, well, things are tough right now. The economy's bad. Interest rates are high. I mean, think about it in the example of my parents. If they wouldn't have bought the house, they bought the house for $140,000. Yeah. And they were paying like 13% interest. But if they wouldn't have bought it, today they wouldn't have a $1.3 million house.
That's right.
Right? That's basically paid off. You know what I mean? So, let's look at that for a second. So the people today that say, I don't want to buy because of the interest rates, well, that doesn't make any sense, because, look out, 20 years from now, 30 years from now, is the house right now that you're buying for $1 million or 500,000 or whatever the number is that thing going to be worth more than it is today? Are you going to earn a return on investment in the next 20 years? I would bank on, and I would, highly bet on the fact that that house is going to grow in value and you will make a return on your money, versus not doing it. Yeah. And so if it makes sense, but getting back to the education thing. So I think it's sad that we're educating our kids to be afraid to take a risk or be afraid. And then on top of that, they go, hey, you need to go get a job. You need to get benefits and get your salary, and life will be great. And the challenge with that is they get out of college. This is why 50% of the kids, they end up moving back with their parents, because they can't get a job after college, because they have no experience at all. So the jobs say, hey man, we love that you went to college. It's great, but you have no experience, so we can't use you. So then they go become a dishwasher or a bartender or something like that. It's just a totally screwed up system right now of a lot of it's like the blind leading the blind, a bunch of uneducated people teaching a bunch of uneducated people, and nobody knows what they're doing. And again, like you said, you get yourself around a lot of successful people. You get yourself around, that's what I did. At 21 years old, I went into business. I was financially independent by 28. All not because I was the smartest. I don't have the highest IQ. I was a bad kid in school. I got, C minuses, D pluses. That was my average, grade in school. I wasn't the most likely to succeed. But guess what? At 21, I said, hey, I'm going to go hang out with Anthony Robbins. And by the way, that's what I did. 6 months into business, I went to my first Anthony Robbins seminar. I hung out with Anthony Robbins. I hung out with a bunch of really, really, successful people. Just like you were saying, you get around those people, you start learning stuff, right? So who was some of your mentors early on that helped you?
Well, there were people I mean, there were some in the athletic space. A lot of them were just people, successful business owners. I mean, I went to my first Tony Robbins event in 2014, actually right after I got back from Rome, when I was on a high and I didn't want the highs to end. So I wanted more personal growth. So I went to that. Huge fan of anything that's done in that space. But a lot of the people were just people that were close to me. They were former bosses. There were people that ran successful businesses. Some of the alumni of my fraternity that I was in college, because I went to a school where I went to school, our fraternity was very prominent. Like governors for the state of Nevada had come out of there, US senators. So it was a lot of well-connected people, but it was all about creating a network, right? And just shaking as many hands as possible, getting to know people, getting curious, staying humble. And here's the other thing. It's STFU. It's what my coach says. Just shut the fuck up. Don't talk. Just listen, right? Get around people and listen. Too many people are saying, you got to make your mark and you got to be bossy in there and, you know, let everyone know what you are. No. Sit back. I want to be the quietest, dumbest guy in the room. I just want to be inquisitive. And that always served me well. Through good times and bad times, it helped me get out of certain bad times much faster than I would have by simply doing whatever I had to do to get in the room and getting around successful people. So it wasn't necessarily any big figures or names or well-to-do names. That came a little bit later. I mean, a lot were, you know, people in politics or in policy, but they're not anyone that's going to be a household name. They were figures that were big in the state where I was in. But these guys all came from very successful business backgrounds. And to your point, I think that is where the disservice is within the educational system, right? It's like we serve up and teach people how to be good employees. We don't teach entrepreneurship or the value of money or how to use money for good. Then they demonize it when you get into certain studies, that it's bad and that people with too much money and concentration of wealth is bad. And no one's ever been taught to properly harness it or see what the good that can actually come from it. Because it does, right? It does create that. And all global events center around those 5 things, MONEY. But no one's taught that stuff, right? So I'm glad you bring that up. And it's kind of upon all of us in terms of those who advocate for financial literacy and are trying to help move the needle in people's lives and teach them a little bit more. But I'm hoping that one day that'll change, that within the educational system, you'll start to see that, a little bit of an implementation about understanding money, how it works, how to save, you know, just even that would have been valuable, because you take the higher educational system that you're talking about with professors who don't even come from any sort of private successful background, right, in the private sector, which is sad, but yet they're the ones that are teaching you or, you know, instructing you mainly from a book, not through life experience or anything tangible. They're just reading a course back out to you. And then on top of that, because this happened to me and I fell prey to it, you have the credit card industry that's out there on college campuses getting kids into college, or like into these credit cards. I was 20 grand in debt like before my senior year of college. I paid it off quickly because the mortgage industry happened to be this like floodgates of cash flow that I got out of it. But it was scary because I didn't even realize, and they were almost like preying on people. And you got to remember, right? The United States economy is predicated on consumption. So unless you want to be part of that problem, and I'm not saying don't root for the US economy. I'm the biggest fan of the US economy. I always want it to be strong, but understand how it works and what makes it tick. And sometimes who benefits from that and who is actually like, you know, kind of the workhorses that are doing it at their own personal expense or their own credit. So we got to be careful. We got to teach people more about this stuff. It's important to have a grasp on it. But I'm hopeful like you that one day that really shifts, you know, to where people are actually being taught about money more.
Yeah. I mean, when you talk about money, you know, like you said before, the passive income or the reoccurring income or the side hustles and having other streams of income and things like that. I mean, this has to be taught at some point in time. People got to realize that just because you have a job that you're working 9 to 5 doesn't mean you can't work, you know, after 5 o'clock. Doesn't mean that like, okay, 5 o'clock, I'm dead. I got to go home and I got to watch Netflix all night long. I mean, you don't have to do that. You literally could at 5 o'clock, when you get out of your job, you could start a side hustle. You could do something different, part-time, whatever it is, and try to grow something, try to build something that ultimately could run without you. That was, and by the way, that was always my, looking back, that's what changed my life, right? Is I built an agency where we have 1,500 agents, we have 55 locations where, you know, they don't need me anymore. So I don't have to be physical. I don't have to sell anymore. I don't have to recruit anymore. I don't have to be there anymore. Nobody needs me. Nobody wants. Matter of fact, a lot of them don't even like me. You know what I mean? So it doesn't matter anymore. It's just like, it's an unbelievable thing when you experience exactly what you're talking about is like, because look, your one income making 40,000, these people out there, they're making 40 grand and they're like, oh, life is so terrible because I can't, afford a house and everything's got me priced out. And then what is it? It's all woe is me bullshit, right? Versus saying, wait a minute, I can change. I can do something different. I can keep my job, start something else, build something, add that extra. Maybe I could go build another 3,000 or 4,000 of income per month. Now I'm making 8,000 a month. Now buying a house is actually feasible. Now it's possible to do something like that. And then the other thing is, like you said, America is built on consumerism. Like people need to start living below their means.
Please, thank you.
Enough.
Thank you.
Yeah, enough with the, you think everybody's got to have Gucci, man. I mean, give me a break. I mean, buy the nice things when you have the money. That's fine. But that should be after you saved 50%. What's interesting is you look at like China and you wonder, these people, they save so much money. They're building so much wealth and they're creating so much, all their savings, and they're buying real estate and properties and land and all these different things. And a lot of them, they're doing it together, right? Because they're saving such a large percent of their income. Most Americans, we're like at a negative savings rate. So we're in trouble, man. I mean, because everybody they see on Instagram, they think, oh, that person just flew a private jet. It's like, wait a minute. I got a lot of money and I ain't doing private jets. I'm not doing like to me, doing private jets all over the place when you're not hundreds of millions of dollars. I think it's just crazy, right? I mean, the amount of clothes people are buying, the amount of money people are spending on shoes and cars and all these different things. When you don't have the money, don't do it. Build yourself a nest egg of 10 million, 20 million, whatever the number is for whoever, and get yourself solid. I always thought about myself as like on an airplane, they say, oxygen mask, put on your oxygen mask first, then you go help the world. That's what I thought about. I'm like, I'm going to take care of me first. Once I take care of me, then I'm going to go change the world. Then I'm going to go help a lot of people. Then I'm going to go and it's interesting because Warren Buffett just talked about it the other day again. Yeah. And he's like, I don't even give to charity right now because I think I could build more wealth over the long term and then give it all away at the end. Yeah. And I probably make a bigger impact that way.